Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your future is show up for your dream, even when no one else is watching. Welcome back to another video on the Authentic Author Academy YouTube channel. Big hello to my regular viewers and subscribers. And if you are joining for the first time, I'm Sharon Halliday and I've been writing for over 35 years. Now I bring all of my writing experience to this channel where I hope that I'm helping you with ideas, insights and instructions so that you can write your book. Now, when I was growing up, I loved reading, particularly Enid Blyton and the Anne of Green Gables series. So I think that went hand in hand with, loving the written word and really immersing myself in books, even, like The Folk of the Faraway Tree rings a bell from all those years ago. I would basically just take my book and often go into the backyard of my nan's property and just lay on the concrete or the ground, on the dirt, what have you, the grass, and just read for hours and hours and hours. My nan used to take me to the local newsagents, which was also a bookstore in Young, where I grew up, country New South Wales. It was called Gilbert's, and she would order the next Anne of Green Gables book in the series. And so that was a really special moment for us, and it really kept nurturing my love of reading. But I also liked writing, so I'd sit on my nan's veranda and I'd have my notebook and pen or pencil. It was a HB pencil, and sometimes just an exercise book. But I did love there was like a red and black series of like an A5 notebook that I particularly loved. And yeah, so I just would sit there and I'd see a beautiful sunset with all the colours, and I'd write about that, and I'd write about all the different flowers and the colours of the flowers in her garden. She loved her hydrangeas and her gladiolas, and yeah, so I read about what I was seeing in the world. Later on, I would write about deeper things that were affecting me, a lot of emotions and stuff, life on the farm. So what I used to write about on the farm was not just the struggles and the sacrifices, because there was a lot of those, and seeing my two very hardworking parents, but also, I guess, teenage angst as I got older, and, the boys that broke my heart, and then I'd watch the beauty of a sunset and write about that to kind of patch it back together in a way. So many of you know that at age 11, I won a Henry Lawson Poetry Award for my poem, The Fog. And that was where I got that idea that really solidified my love of reading and writing, and just gave me that inspiration. I want to be a writer. I want to be an author. But as many of you know, it would take me another 26 years to hold a copy of my book in my hands, Messages from the Heart. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how that journey unfolded and share with you, I guess, some of those sacrifices and having to embrace the hard work behind creating my book, and the moments that led up to the creation of my book. And I think it'll give you some powerful insights into how we actually go about turning our dreams into a reality. I'm a big believer in being able to manifest and co-create your destiny with the universe, but I'm also a big believer in getting in and doing the work. And this is where we'll get those moments of inspiration, and then we take action towards our goals. And a lot of what I've been reading lately, especially from James Clear in Atomic Habits, is about becoming the person you need to be to reach those dreams. So you'll hear a little bit of that today, because I had to take on the role and a persona of an author to bring about my book. Sure, there was a touch of luck, as you'll hear, but I had to work at it. There was just no getting around that. I had to take action steps to get from point A to point B to having the book, to really bring about my dream and make it come to physical reality. And that's what I think people really need to understand, that, it doesn't matter if you're writing a book or pursuing some other passion or goal or dream, you have to take action on it. And there'll be many steps to take you in that direction. So you just got to put the work in and the effort. And I think the more that you can embrace that and make it your own and just not resist it is it won't take you 26 years to achieve that dream for you. Hopefully you'll take my advice and you'll be able to get on with it. But I clearly had a lot of resistance, and I talk about that sometimes with, invisible wounds of where I didn't feel like I was good enough, or, I wasn't conscious of that at the time. But over the years, clearly I was doing things that either self-sabotaged or just kept that dream a little bit in the distance. And then finally, when I had some opportunities to grab it with both hands, which you'll hear about today, then I really started to embrace what I needed to do to make that book come about. So just to recap for you a little bit, going back, let's go back a step. So I'm 11. I've won the Henry Lawson poetry competition. Something lit up in me and I went, I want to be a writer. I'd love to have my own book. I'm not sure if it was that conscious, but I had that feeling of I want to be an author too. Now that I've actually been recognized for my writing, there was something going on there. Definitely lit a fire. And then a few years later, I was in the office with my dad, and he was looking at these eligibility criteria for what was these tourism awards for local business. So my parents had a very big business. We had cherry orchards, but at that time we had just put in a jam factory. We basically lost our property at an auction, our beautiful big home, to pay for the jam factory. That happened on my 13th birthday and went through quite a lot of hardships, but we had this amazing property with a jam factory, and people could come and see the jam being made and have a cup of tea and have some sandwiches. And we were really developing this tourist attraction. So the local tourist operator, the information center manager, had said to my dad, I didn't know this at the time, but she'd given him a copy of these awards, to enter, because the business was starting to attract a lot of people from far and wide around even from the cities and across the country. And here we were, this, business in a small town. Young had, I think at the time, a population of about 10,000 people. So I saw him look at this, and it just happened to be one of those serendipity moments. He threw it in the bin. He went and did something else on the property, went and probably went to check the jam factory. And I've gone and taken this booklet out of the bin. And so then I've looked at it and went, oh, I've had this thought, we could do this. So when I confronted him about it, he was basically saying there's a lot of work involved with this. Him and mum left school at 14 and 15, and they didn't feel like they had that education to be able to look at something like this and write about their business. So that's where I came in. I said, so I was 15, so heading off to, I was at that stage at boarding school in Canberra, and in my school holidays, I started writing these submissions to go into tourism awards. So that started when I was 15. And I did that for 7 straight consecutive years, because from that very first entry, we actually won local award for a tourist attraction category. We won a regional award, and then we started to get, become a finalist in the state awards, which was a really huge achievement back then for any, and probably still today, for any business to get to a state awards, whether it's a business awards or a tourism awards, is quite a big feat. Especially, we were a very, a small family owned and operated business. We were starting to receive over 100,000 visitors a year. So we were a significant attraction, yet we were able to write about, particularly from our point of customer service, we delivered very high levels of customer service, to the point where when people would have their lunch, they would get a nice, warm, hot little towel, like sometimes you would see years ago at, Chinese restaurants, they would often bring around these warm, hot, like a face washer almost. And so we were doing little things like that, and lots and lots of little things to make the customer experience absolutely second to none. So every person who came to our property felt really special, and even if you were having a silverside sandwich with chutney or pickles and a coffee with your friends, you felt really special, and it was an experience in itself. So that's where we started to win. Again, I'm getting a little bit emotional because this was such a big part of my life. So writing was a big part of that. We began to win these awards, and it really started to put not just our own property, which was called JD's Jam Factory, on the map, but the town. We did a lot. My dad and I would go to a lot of meetings and really still start to be involved in the development of tourism in the local area and regionally. So writing was at that young age, yes, I had a life as a teenager, and that's a whole other conversation because I was definitely at times enjoying being a teenager, but there was this other side of me where I would write and help my parents with their business. That's how I felt like I could contribute, seeing two very hardworking parents attempting to grow something for myself and my brother. So I did that. And then as I went into different careers, writing was a very big part of what I did. And so then let's fast forward to 2014. My husband's been given an opportunity to become a detective, but to do that, we need to move to Griffith. So we do that. And just by chance, one day I'm out there enjoying, watching my son play at the local aquatic centre, and there's another young boy playing with him, and I'm sitting next to a lady, and we're chatting and commenting and having a grand old time. And we realise, oh, our boys are best friends at preschool. We had just never met. So then we get talking, and she asks me about what I do, and I tell her that I'm a oracle card reader by trade, and I'd gone to Doreen Virtue Angel Intuitive workshops, and I also, you would see clients in my healing practice because I do hands-on healing and Reiki. I still do that to this day. And she was very intrigued. She was so interested, and it wasn't long before Monique basically said, would you like to have your own column in a newspaper? And I was like gobsmacked, like, yeah, wow, whoa. I'd been talking to her about how I just started my blog and was loving writing about all things writing and all things what I was doing in my life and healing, and it just, yeah, that what a blog is, like a commentary on your life. And I used to weave in a lot of messages and things that were happening. So she was really interested in all of that, and she's offered me my own column, and she's told me that she's the editor of the local paper, the Area News, which Griffith, being a city, had quite a huge, big readership. So I was like, oh, I think I said, where do I sign? And she said, don't worry about it, I'll be in touch. And I came away from that moment, absolutely, it is still to this day one of the biggest highs of my life, right up there with having babies and getting married. That's how much of a high that was. So I went away just absolutely buzzing. And then I was, over the weekend, getting all these ideas, and in the early hours of the Monday morning, a couple of days after that moment, I started getting all these ideas for an introductory column, like how would I introduce myself to the community and what sort of things would I write about? And then I turned on my computer that morning, and here's an email from Monique to say, hey, just touching base, how about you start to draft a column that would be like your first column, introducing yourself to the community. And I was able to write back straight away and say, oh, it's kind of already done. It just came through came through me, and that's kind of how my writing's always been like that. I've always seen myself as a bit of a vessel to be able to pass on messages and ideas, and that's something I particularly embrace. So there's a bit of a hot tip in and of itself. You know, when you get, if you can take yourself out of it and just see yourself as a bit of a channel for as a writer, then you really remove a lot of that ego and you can write from that very pure and honest place. So that's what happened. And so now I have my own column called Ask Sharon, and I'm writing for the Area News. So I did that for all of 2015. And what would happen is we had an email address set up so that people could write into the paper and they could write a question about anything they wanted. There was nothing that was off limits. And so I would get a question from somebody, and I would, first of all, I'd start to get these instincts of what a column could look like in answering that question, and I'd do a card reading, and then I'd sort of weave in a bit of my own advice and some of my own personal life experience, and then I would maybe grab a quote from Deepak or Oprah and pull it all together, 350 words every Friday, an Ask Sharon column for 2015. So I did that, and then at the end of that year, when I looked back over the columns, I realized, oh my gosh, I've covered stuff on money and work and family and parenting. Relationships was a big one. Even things like how to live the life of your dreams. All sorts of questions were asked, and I realized there were these universal messages in what I had created. And then it dawned on me, oh my gosh, this is a book. So that brings us up to 2016. And I knew, even though I kind of had the book written in the form of columns, I knew there was still a bit of work to do. So for nearly every Saturday for 2016, I would ship myself off to the local library, the Griffith Library, and I spent about 5 hours in absolute focused time on editing, rewriting, reshaping my work so that it was in the format for a book. I kept the integrity of the columns the way that I wanted, but there were a few things that I was able to add to really make it into a book form. And also I created a huge index so that people could be able to look up a topic and look back over to a column that really would resonate with them. But the idea of the book was also so they had the contents, they had the index, but they could essentially turn to a page based on what they were feeling and get a mini message for the day, because 350 words was pretty short, sharp, to the point. So yes, it was challenging to potentially miss out on a lot of things on those Saturdays. You know, there were times when I got asked, you know, my girlfriends might want to take me out on a Friday night, and I would just be like, I just have to say no, because that time was so sacred to me, and I knew that I didn't want to be hungover or have a late night. So I sacrificed. I might have missed out on social things during those Saturdays, and obviously time with my family. But that quiet library space became really sacred, like a mini writing retreat. It was this sanctuary. And I would say that it actually provided me with an opportunity to be present with whatever I was doing during the week, because I knew that come Saturday, it was just going to be me and my book. So that was really empowering, I would say. I developed these mini rituals, and I made the process something I looked forward to. So I'd go to my local cafe across the road from the library, and I would grab myself a coffee, I'd grab a tasty lunch, which I'd take with me, and I'd head off to this little private room and just have my laptop, all of the things I needed, no social media, no other distractions, and I just worked away on my book. So I guess, you know, the big point here today is that sacrifice and drive really go hand in hand. As I said, I gave up outings. I said no to distractions, but I had a mission, because that book mattered so much to me, and it was that belief that kept me going. Yeah, it was hard work, and I will admit that. But I was also determined to find joy in the process. It was like this little voice saying to me, I needed to embrace every part of what I was doing, because what was the point otherwise? I already knew in those moments that my book writing process and project, it had to be something I embraced, that I could call my own, sacrifices and all, so that one day I could share it with someone like you who might be looking to do the same thing, or trying to come up with a new way of going about their book or their project. You know, someone who's got a book in their heart and needs it to get out. This is definitely one way you can go about it. You might create something similar, but I found that having an interruption in the routine of the week and going somewhere else, changing scenes, and really facilitating that private creative sanctuary was very, very effective for me. So now it's your turn. If you're an aspiring author, you know, you can see you don't need a perfect plan. You've just got to have a starting point, maybe a bit of a ritual or structure, and a hell lot of self-belief. So, you know, it's about showing up again and again and again. And so if there is something calling you, please, I urge you, I encourage you, I empower you to carve out that space, because even if it's just one quiet corner and a few borrowed hours, you never know what might come of it. And you might just get your book out there too by doing that. So please let me know if any of this has hit home for you today. Are you quietly, you know, and diligently working on your book or a project? Would you like to be? We can have a conversation about it. I'd really love for you to share in the comments that if there's anything I can help with that, to keep that project moving along joyfully. I would love to be a part of that, but I'd also love to hear what people are working on. And yeah, thank you for being here with me during this time on the Authentic Author Academy channel once again, and I'll see you in the next video.